So now we will move on to the next part of this operation, which will be building the support structure and getting the legs to the right length and all that good stuff. So let me get set up for that and we'll get started. What we're going to do is take all the staples out of the end of these things and get them all measured up. Make sure they're all exactly the exact same height, because I've got to do some cutting. We're going to chop a little bit off of these because they're 35 inches and that's too tall for the table she wants. She only wants it 30 inches. So the fact that this is 3/4 of an inch thick, I need to have this thing at about 29 1/4 to be exact. So I think an estimate of that would be close. There you go. 4 legs. What we're going to do is kind of stand them in the corners, get a general idea of where they belong, and then start taking some measurements. Oh look, it's ready to go. By golly. Get this right out to the edge here so I can run my tape out. Because remember I said the height of the table is 30 inches. She wants that fairly exact. And right now we are at 35 3/4. Here's my rule about measuring. Don't just jump out of here and go, okay, 35 3/4. I got to cut off 5 3/4 inches from this leg because we can't change the table thickness. I don't have the planers for that. So I do have a chop saw. We can cut pieces off of this leg. So I'm not going to just cut 5 3/4 inches off this thing without making sure. So I'm going to measure twice and cut once, as opposed to measure once, cut once, and then go buy another leg for friggin' 30 bucks. So again, 35 3/4 inches exactly. 35 3/4 inches exactly. Which means, this is how we're going to do this. I can't cut 5 3/4 inches off the top, because that would only leave me, if I cut 5 3/4 inches off of here, that would be right to here. That would only leave me this little piece right here to attach my apron boards to. I need to have at least, those are like 3.5 inches wide, those apron boards, the ones on the right aisle. So I'm going to need about, I can take about 2 inches off of here. About 2 inches. And that'll leave me enough room to put those apron boards on there and still have a little bit of reveal on the bottom. The rest of it is going to have to come off of this end. So if I take 2 inches off of there, that means that I got to take, I can take, that's almost 3 down there, 2 7/8. A little more than 2 7/8. It is just right at 3. I think by the time I run the blade through that, it'll be 3. So the table will actually be 30 3/4. And she won't measure, I don't think, but I think that'll be good. 30 3/4, that'll be just a little bit higher than the kitchen table. 3/4 of an inch, it'll be perfect. So we'll take 2 off of the top and almost 3 off the bottom, just like an eighth less than 3 off of that end. And we'll do that to all of these. But before I do that, I want to make sure, because I've done this before, and I'll show you why. It's something that I think about a lot. I did a project once, and I bought these legs just like this, and one of them was literally an inch shorter than the other, or at least a half inch shorter than the other. And and it was just something that just bugged the crap out of me. Wasn't happy about it. Ah, for God's sakes. This one and this one are about a 1/16 of an inch shorter than these two. Isn't that handy? Yes, exactly. They're not all exactly the same at all, but that's okay. I can clean that up. We'll make that part of it right. All right, so we're going to start with cutting 2 inches off the top and cutting the bottom off. So we're going to need some kind of a jig to set the bottom of this thing up in. Okay, well, you can see there by those little feet sitting there that I already made the cuts. I came over here, set you all up at this angle right here, and I prepared to make those cuts. I came over and I hit record, and without checking to make sure it was recording, I went over, sat down, and chopped them all off. And when I got up to shut the camera off, well, the stupid thing never started. Anyway, what the end result of that was is I knew that because everything's tapered and I had all this jigging out here, that everything would be, I might miss by a skosh, 1/16 of an inch at the most, less probably. So what I've done is, since I cut them all, you can see they're all lined up pretty nicely right there. They're pretty clean on the ends. That's my end result. So I've lined them up with the end of the table here, because I still need to take an amount off of the top. So this is where they're going to all meet the floor, and you can see they line up pretty nicely with the end of this board. So I want to make sure that I cut a very exact amount off of this end right here. And you can see that some of them are slightly different lengths than others, and that's fine. I'll just figure out what I got to take off of there, and I'll get a straight edge and I'll go straight across there, and then I will use the little laser on this chop saw to go ahead and actually cut that thing. So let's go ahead and figure out how long they need to be. What did we say? We're going to go with 29 1/4. They are still 32 1/4. They are 32 1/4 exactly. So if I go down to 29 1/4, I can't go that far down actually. I'm going to go down to 30 1/4 because I still need, I'll show you what I need. See, this is my apron board right here, and this thing will go on here. I have a little bit of a setback, so you have some reveal right here. But if I cut off 3 inches, the thing will be down here like this before I get that off of there. So I gotta leave a little bit down here so that it looks right. So I'm gonna cut off 2 inches, and the table's gonna be about 3/4 of an inch taller than really what she wanted. But that's okay. I mean, I could cut more off of that end, but I don't want to cut more off of that end. I've cut enough. So where's my pencil? I'm going to make, I mean, that looks like a pretty good amount right there. I'm going to make this at a minimum there. Or I guess no, at a maximum. At a maximum there. What is that? What is that length? That's 2.5 inches. That's not bad. So if I was to cut it there, that would make my legs 29 3/4. exactly. Plus 3/4 is going to be 30.5. I think that'll be fine. And because these are all perfectly even at the end, I can take my straight edge now with a square, and I can make that line go straight across there. And this one here, which is I don't know, a 32nd of an inch longer, this one will have a little bit more cut off of it, but the end result will be that all of these are going to be the same along this bottom edge right here. And that's perfectly what I want. All right, so here's my device that we're going to use to mark this with. Perfect. Those are lovely square. Perfecto. Now, we measure twice at a minimum in my book. Everything's still lined up real nice there. 29 3/4. That'll work perfectly. Let's make sure this looks okay with this board again. I think that'll be fine. Yep, that will be fine. I will chop those there, and that's the way they'll be. All right, this time I will have this thing pointing at the right place, and I'll make sure that it's actually flipping recording. Let's do some cutting. Okay, here we go. We're gonna chop these babies. I've already cut 2 of them. Too much noise. I didn't want to like freaking make a whole bunch of racket on the video, so I already cut 2 of them. And what I'm doing is just eyeballing these things because I just barely want that line to disappear. And that's where I want this. Make sure it's square up against the back. My jig is set up right. We're still on the line. There we go. This is the last one. Let me get things set up again. All right, get it square. I'm eyeballing this side of the blade on that side of this line. I mean, I want it to land right on the line. I'm trying to be as exact as I can about this because, well, a 3-legged table wouldn't matter. I could have one about an inch longer than the other, it would still sit there, but a 4-legged table will wobble. All right, here we go, last one. Let's see how they turned out. There. That should do it. Dang. That is. Let's take a look. I mean, This one back here has just a little bit of a nick. I must not have held the saw perfectly straight, but for the most part, that is pretty flippin' spot on right there. I'm pretty happy with that. I like it. Works out well. All right. Whew. Now we're going to go into some assembly. Some assembly required. Let me clean things up a little bit, because I got to put the next thing that we're going to do. This is our next operation. Is I'm going to stand the legs in the corners. Make sure I get my inset right. I want right at an inch. And then I'm gonna measure from here to the inside of this one, and I'm gonna get that short piece that I gotta cut off of those wider ones back there, and then I'm gonna go from the inside of this one to the inside of that one and get that length. And we're gonna chop all of those pieces, and then I'll cut a couple of middle braces out of whatever's left over. Maybe I only have enough for one, but we'll see. So that's next. Let me get all set up for that, and I'll bring you back. Okay, what we got here? Tabletop, obviously. The legs that we just cut. And what I'm trying to do here is before I try to cut something that goes in between here, these little pieces that'll fit in here and get screwed onto the legs, and then the longer pieces that'll go from here to there and get screwed onto the legs, and likewise at the end. What I want to do is I want to figure out where these are going to go. To do that, I'm going to measure them in. I want them to be inset right at 1 inch. 1 inch in, so I will get them set in exactly an inch. Just like that. Perfecto. Perfect. 1.25 inches, too long. Inch. Inch 1.8 inch. Double check. Inch. We're set. Now I can get the lengths on these guys. Before I do that though, instead of remeasuring every time, what I'm going to do is I'll kind of mark where these are. Alright, so let's cut one of the long ones. How I will do that is I'll put it right up against this thing. Now this isn't like rocket science. If I'm off by like a 32nd of an inch, I mean, you'll never notice if this leg is in a 32nd of an inch that way or out farther, or like I said, there's a little bit of precision to it, but it's not rocket science. We're not trying to achieve the moon or Mars here or anything. And then right there, my little square, I can use this square now to run a perfectly square line across here. Just like that. Now this one is ready to cut. Okay? Let's do another. We'll do them just like this, and then I'll do the other side. Very similar. You know what? You know what I'm going to do before I do this? Because I don't like the way these ends look. That's so rough. I would like a little bit cleaner cut there so it's a nice, a tighter surface to glue with. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to chop the ends off of that. I mean, just not even a half a blade's width. I just want to clean that up, and then I will remeasure that, and I'll bring you back when I get back to where I currently am. Okay, we're back. The phone ran out of juice, and I had to go in and charge it, so I took a little bit of a break, took a lunch break, got a drink of water, and while we were gone, I chopped the ends off of these real nice, and I remeasured it, put the lines on there, and I'm going to chop those guys off, and then we're going to cut the, we're going to do these ones here. So actually what we'll do is we'll do all the cutting at once. So I'm going to measure those guys first. That's exactly what I wanted to do. So that I can put that right there. And it'll sit right there like that. And then I can make sure I'm still on my marks. Good thing I drew those, because otherwise I'd have my measuring tape out, measuring again. Alright. Let's turn this. Why did I turn that, you ask? Because there's a little flat area on this side here, which will actually be over here when I put it together, and I need a sharp edge here to put this up against. That's why. So right there is where we're going to put that. Good enough. And I think what I'm going to do is cut the other one off of this end here. Just like this. Why am I doing it this way? Well, there's a reason. And I will tell you what that reason is. Because if I just go and I don't want to cut them until I'm all ready to cut. If I just go and I line this line up with this and then measure over to here, which would be out here, I have to take into account the width of the blade. And if I just measure it from that end, I don't have to worry about that. And that end's cut nice and neat, just like this one is. So it all works out perfectly. So now what we're going to do, we're going to set these hunters aside. And we're going to cut us, well, I'm going to do it up here on the table. Cut us some corners real quick. I'll get this all set up and ready to go, and I'll bring you back and we'll do a couple of cuts. All right, let's say we chop a little wood. Let's do it. Get right down in here, get this work surface right in my face. Now I want to keep I want to cut on this side of my line, because that line is right at the leg's edge. So I want to cut right on that side of that line. And like I mentioned before, I mean, it's not rocket science. I mean, if it's off by a couple of hairs, it'll be fine. You will never notice it. From where we stand, that will never get noticed. That piece goes right there, just like that. We'll flip this guy around. and we will chop him off. I want to put that right on that line. Perfect. Now those two are cut. Are they exactly the same length? Nope, one is just a skosh longer. Matter of fact, it is too much of a skosh longer, so I'm going to cut a skosh off of it. How much is a skosh, you ask? About that much. Now they're right. Alright, let's put that one there. Let's one of these up. These are the longer ones. That's the end we're cutting off right there. Now I'm going to stay on this side of the line because I'm keeping this piece to go right here. So I'm on this side of the line this time. I want to stay just about exactly on that side of the line. These saws, I'll tell you what, I do like these saws. You had to cut this stuff with a like a hand saw and a miter jig. Geez, what a pain in the butt that would be. I mean, that would be how you would have done it, you know, many years ago, but not right now. It's not the time for suchness. There it is. There's our 4 boards. Those are the apron boards that go around the bottom of it. They are ready to go. All right. Let me tear this all apart, get it all set up. I'll show you what comes next. All right. Let's do a walkabout. We're going to hand walk this thing. There it is. The skirts are in place. I haven't screwed anything. It's just sitting here. I mean, it's just, you can see that they're just sitting there. Nothing's screwed together. That board in the middle, I will, once everything's screwed together and I know the exact placement of everything, basically chop it here, here, and then it'll fit down in there, and I will screw it all along the edges there and glue it in place so that there's middle support on this table from the center. That's just up there for that. But anyway, the next piece of this operation is going to be we're going to put some pocket holes in here, and we're going to get ready to screw the legs to the aprons. We're going to screw the legs right here to these apron pieces. We'll put 2 screws there and 2 screws there, 2 screws here, 2 at each intersection where they meet the aprons on the legs. Okay, running out of steam here. Been at this all day. This morning we went to Lowe's, we shopped for some stuff, got it all purchased and brought back to the house, laid it all out here, made some quick assessments, grabbed the chop saw, chopped the legs to length. We chopped the apron boards to length, both long-wise and short-wise. Got those all laid out there, set those up. It looked really nice, put together. Now what we're going to do is we're going to drill us some pocket holes and glue and screw this thing together. First thing we got to do is put the pocket holes together. I have a pretty fancy little jig for that. This thing here is a Craig pocket hole jig set. It's a pretty neat piece of little kit here, as they would say in England. We're going to use that, make us some pocket holes, put this thing together with some glue and some screws, and I will show you how that process goes in the next video. This one is getting just a little bit long in the tooth, so the next one I'll put that together, and then after that we will paint and stain the thing, and we'll finish this table up. So hang with me, let's put this thing together.